Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, Tulsa's source for great gardens, southwoodgardencenter.com. And the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing.
Today on Oklahoma Gardening, host Casey Hentges surveys the garden for winter chores. Oklahoma Urban and Community Forestry Coordinator Mark Bays shows how damaged or unwanted urban trees can be kept out of landfills and made into beautiful wood products. We stop by Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa, Oklahoma to look at how they are incorporating new technology into a historic renovation. Barbara Brown cooks a savory frittata, and we bring this gardening season to a close.
As we head into the winter months, you might be looking around your garden and asking, now what do I do with all of these plants? Well, if you have any annuals, you want to go ahead and remove those from your garden and add them into your compost pile. If you have any plant material that's infested or has diseases, again, you want to remove that from your garden now to prevent the potential risk of it spreading to new plants next season. Other than that, for the most part, you really don't need to mess with any of your other plants until late winter and early spring, when several of them will get cut back. Leaving the dead vegetation actually helps protect the roots through the winter months, as well as add new dimension to the landscape when it can kind of be dreary. It also helps provide shelter to our wildlife.
Hi, I'm Mark Bays with Oklahoma Forestry Services, and on previous segments of Oklahoma Gardening, you've seen a lot of the traditional forestry activities that we have in our state. A lot of that is out in the eastern part and the southeastern part of the state. And we've seen that you get a lot of different products from those wonderful trees that we grow. Well, we're doing something a little bit different this time, is we're looking at what products that you can get out of trees that might be growing in the urban area. I mean, so often, we think about trees, beautiful trees in our yards, in our homes, in our cities, in our parks, and we get the value of that and the benefits of those when they're alive. Well, there's now this whole paradigm shift that we're thinking about is, let's think about using those trees after they have to come out for whatever reason for products. Besides all the products, just think about what is not happening. We're not having to haul all this tree off to the landfill, and that's certainly a waste of space. Think about sustainability. If we can make products out of trees that are growing in our yards and in our parks right here in Oklahoma, how great is that? So we're out here just outside of Oklahoma City with a local mill that is interested in using some of those trees that traditionally might have gone off to the landfill. Oklahoma Forestry Services has recently conducted a survey of the mills all across the state, and you could go to our website and find out mills in your area that might be interested in getting some of those trees that have to be removed off of your property. So we're out here in northwest Oklahoma City at 360 Timber Productions with the proprietor out here, Vaden Dean. And Vaden's nice enough to cooperate with the Oklahoma City Parks Department to really push this idea forward that there are some milling operations out there that are interested in taking some of this urban wood. So Vaden, we really appreciate you.
You're welcome, Mark.
Being
Glad to
out
be here.
There are some ideas that, the mills are only interested in particular kind of wood. But what kind of wood would you find that's acceptable and that you might be interested in getting?
In the urban strategy, it doesn't really matter what type of wood, and you are correct. Some mills prefer to deal with just strictly certain woods. I'm looking for anything, something that has a meaning, a story, something we can keep out of the landfill. It can be anything.
Well, Vaden, I really want to thank you again for your innovation and your willingness to kind of share your craft with everybody, and your willingness to actually help, use something out of a product, trees in urban areas that we tend to not use much out of, particularly when they get cut. So what we're really excited about now is, now that Vaden has milled all this, we're going to go to a secondary producer that is going to really make something interesting out of this wood. So here we are. The wood's been cut, it's been milled. Now we're at the place with Justin Pruitt, and he is the person that's going to turn that raw wood into something really fabulous. So we want to thank him for allowing us into his shop today to kind of showcase the next step in this process. So it's been a year. We had to wait until the wood got a certain percentage of wood. So can you say a little bit about that?
If it has a high moisture content, the wood is going to warp, and it won't stay flat, and your table won't be a good quality table.
So what's the moisture content that we're looking at for here?
This one right now is at 4%, so you want to try to get as low as you can for the environment that you live in.
Okay. So can you tell people now, after you get a piece of wood, what are the steps that you go through to make something out of it?
What I do is I find the best quality, try to take out the parts that are bad, and then what I'll do is I'll level it and glue it up with a good quality wood glue.
And so now you start a sanding process and a milling. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I took one of the live edges off, two of the slabs, and then so now I'm going to find my best placement to put in dowel joinery to do in between to make it stronger, to help the wood glue a stronger bond. And then I'm going to take a router and plane across the whole surface to make it a one level surface. And then do the sanders from there.
Sanders, and then on top of that, there'll probably be some kind of a sheen or a finishing product.
Yes, there'll be a oil, like tongue oil, to make it, bring out the beauty in the wood, nothing to really cover it up. And so,
I mean, this is walnut. It's already pretty wood,
yes,
so, but you're just going to help it kind of shine a little bit.
Yes.
Now, the legs here kind of, I mean, this is a heavy piece of wood.
Yes.
So what kind of legs are you using on this?
I'm using 2x3 by 1/8 inch steel, and I welded them up to a square, and then I made a support structure for the tabletop, and then a stretcher to support the legs.
Now, are you going to assemble all this and then bring it to its final destination, or are you going to put it together when they finally figure out where it's going to go?
I'm going to pre-assemble, and then it's how I made it is where I could disassemble it and then reassemble it where it goes to make it easier for transportation.
How long have you been doing this kind of stuff?
I've been doing it for about 8 years.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. What got you into this kind of work?
I first started building ramps for my oldest son for his monster trucks, RC monster trucks. And
so if you can build a monster truck ramp, you can certainly build a table.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Justin, thank you so much for inviting us here today. I am really excited to see this. I mean, it's already beautiful now, but I can't wait to see the final product. So thank you so much for allowing us into your wood shop.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Today we are joined by Russ Myers, who is the golf course superintendent here at Southern Hills Country Club. And Russ, we're here on the championship course, which is actually closed to the membership right now. You've got a lot going on. Can you tell us a little bit about your renovations?
I'll try. We closed the golf course, gosh, I'm going to lose track of the dates already, but August 1st, and we'll reopen somewhere tentatively around June 1st, and we're going through a full restoration, we call it a kind of a spiritual restoration of the golf course that includes rebuilding greens, redoing bunkers, all new tee boxes, whole new irrigation system, and there's a number of other things going on as well, including the installation of a heating and cooling system under the greens, facility changes, whether that be the main entrance to the club or moving the we call it the cart barn, where we store golf clubs and carts underground, there's a number of different things going on.
You got a lot of activity.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about rejuvenating the spirit of the course here, can you tell us a little bit more? You're going back to the authentic architecture plans, or?
Yeah, that's it right there. When I say a spiritual restoration, there's kind of many ways to look at this. To truly restore a golf course, you would take the original images, the original drawings, whatever you've got of the architect, in our case Perry Maxwell, and you would try to recreate that perfectly. For a variety of reasons, we're not going to do that to a true perfect restoration. We're going to take the spirit of what Maxwell did. We don't have as good of architectural history of what each hole looked like as some other places might. We use pictures, we use the locations of where those bunkers were. We keep the greens as they have been maintained since 1936. And we kind of adapt to that. So anything that has been lost of Maxwell's over the years that we know of, whether that be a little island in the middle of the bunker or a pairing of bunkers, of big bunkers and little bunkers, or maybe a creek that got filled in, we're recapturing all those things where we know they existed.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about the technical stuff that's going on
Sure.
behind us. We've got a maze of pipes behind us.
Yeah.
Tell us specifically what we're looking at here.
Okay, this is commonly referred to as hydronics in golf course world. It's the exact same philosophy as radiant heating and cooling of your floors in your home.
Okay.
So what we've got here is we've got 3/4 inch tubing on 9-inch spacing winding through the subgrade of the green. So here you see a gravel blanket for drainage, the tubing, and then on top of that you'll get 12 inches of sand and peat mix combination. And that's the growing media for most USGA specified golf greens.
I think we think grass grows in soil, but not on golf courses.
It used to. It's
Yeah.
adapted over the years to follow these specifications of
Uh-huh.
sand and peat moss blend, and people modify it and do other things. But ultimately they're looking for a certain amount of drainage. And the theory behind this green is that you've got the 4-inch gravel and then the sand on top that perches the water above that gravel.
Okay.
So as that sand zone, the 12-inch zone, gets wet, when it gets to a certain weight of water, it will break that tension and release and flush out of the green.
Right, and that what you mentioned is something critical for all gardeners to realize. Anytime the soil texture profile changes, it actually will hold that water in
Sure.
that profile. So basically, you can heat and cool your greens with this?
That's correct. In the summer months, I always give an example of July and August are the hardest months for us to grow cool season grasses like creeping bentgrass, which is our preferred grass on our greens. They're the hardest to grow because of the nighttime low temperatures are really high, the daytime highs are high. But ironic, so if July and August are our hardest, June and September are really pretty good for us. So if we can trick the soil, trick the grass into thinking that it's June and September when it's July and August, we then eliminate the risk of losing turf grass due to heat and thus losing playing time for membership and ultimately being able to present a better product to our membership.
Right. Well, let's go take a look at that other aspect that you're doing, and that's those bunkers that
All
I
right.
would find if I was golfing.
Okay.
So Russ, to the layperson, a sand pit is a sand pit. But we've got gravel going in first. Can you tell us what we're doing in here?
Okay. Well, from a process standpoint, what you've got is the base shaping gets done by the architect. The contractor comes in, cleans up the floors to make sure that the water's all going to move to the internal drain pipes that you see around us. All that drainage then gets carried to the creeks. Then the evolution in what we call bunker liners in golf, they used to be fabrics, and now they've gone to these porous materials where what you see here is 2 inches of stone, pre-approved stone, that will bridge to the bunker sand on top of it. So they're coming through, putting the 2-inch stone blanket in, and then they'll actually apply a polymer to this, spray it on, called Better Billy Bunker, that will harden it up but still allow infiltration.
Oh, okay.
So it protects contamination of dirt into the bunker sand. It helps eliminate washouts during heavy rains. This stuff drains really fast so the water moves through.
Okay, so you won't, on the steep cliffs, you won't have your sand sloughing off.
Yeah, we won't have to go through and throw shovels and put the sand back up on there.
Okay, so a lot of you, the shape of the bunkers have changed too. Can you tell us?
They have. So we're trying to recapture again the spirit of Maxwell, which was more movement in the lips, more varying heights on the edges as you see around us, the number of stacks of sod to give
some areas of the lip more thickness than others, creating shadows that look different and a more natural appearance to the bunker.
And I think that's interesting. They're using layers of sod to actually build up the edges. It's a building block, basically.
Yeah, it provides good structure to it, but more, it's our architect Gil Hantz. It's really a staple of his operation. They've built what many regard as the best bunkers in the game of golf throughout the country, and this is a characteristic they've incorporated into them. He calls it the third dimension, where instead of just looking at the depth and the width of the bunker, you create this almost muscle to the edges, where you don't have a continuous 2-inch line that we're edging. You have ups and downs, and the shadowing is longer and shorter, and it just sets into the landscape a lot.
Well, it looks beautiful out here, and hopefully we can come back and visit you when it's all done.
Love to have you. It's always great.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, guys.
Happy holidays. This recipe is for a meal that is not the major meal of the holiday, but for the holiday season. Again, this will be something that you can have for a breakfast, you could have it for a lunch, but it's probably not going to hit the actual holiday table itself in the evening for the big meal. It's a corn frittata, and I'm going to start with about a tablespoon of vegetable oil. I've got a oven-proof skillet, so this one can go in the oven at 375. The oven is preheating at that temperature. I'm putting that in there, and then I'm going to use cremini mushrooms. Again, you can use button mushrooms, but the creminis give you more depth of flavor, and since this doesn't have a lot of ingredients that add a real punch to it, the first time I did it, I thought it was too bland. I wanted to use the mushrooms that are going to give me the most punch. Make sure when you use them, I've got about 6 ounces of mushrooms, which will give you about 2 cups. I've got a 10-inch skillet, and I want to make sure that they're not overlaying each other, that you've got a single layer of mushrooms in the skillet. You're going to let them heat and brown, and as they brown, you're going to see some liquid release, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. In addition to develop the added flavor to them, we want them to release the liquid that's here, because we don't want that to be released while they're heating in the oven. That's going to prevent our frittata from forming. So this, we're going to let them cook, and then we'll turn them over. We'll let them cook for 3 to 5 minutes until they get a good browning. Also going to add about 1/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt, and that's going to also help some of that liquid come out. Just a little bit. If we don't use it all in here, we can always stir it in the rest of the frittata later. So I just want a little bit, help start to pull that out. Again, flip them as they begin to brown on the other side. And while that's going, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what a frittata is. Most of you probably know. We often see them with potatoes and other kinds of things, maybe pasta that's left over that you mix with eggs. They go into the oven. They're not quite an omelet. They're not quite a quiche, but they're kind of in between. Sort of like a quiche without the crust. So I've got a dozen eggs, and I'm going to whip those together until they're nicely blended, and then we'll just add the other ingredients to this. In general, the ratio that you use is 6 eggs, 1/4 of a cup of cream, a cup of cheese, and 2 cups of a combination of meat and or vegetable. You do the same kind of thing with that, then that can go into the skillet, and you can move it on into the oven and bake it for a little while. We're doing this one a little bit differently in that we're not using any cream. We are still going to use cheese. I'm using 12 eggs instead of 6, so we've got a little bit of a larger quantity. But our liquid instead of cream is coming from creamed corn, which doesn't actually have cream in it, but we'll provide the liquid in a thickened form that will work very well, that will marry very well with this. So I'm going to go back and work on the mushrooms, and we'll come back and finish this up when we get all the mushrooms done. At the first time I made this, I didn't think it had enough flavor, so I've done a little bit of experimentation, and I found that adding 1/2 of a jalapeno chopped up does a nice job for somebody like me who doesn't like it excessively spicy, but you could boost it even more. You could put in more jalapeno, you could put in some hot sauce. There are lots of things you can do to this to improve the flavor. I'm adding it a little bit before the mushrooms are done because I want to saute it just a tad. It's going to cook in the oven for quite a while, so if there's not a lot that's happening, that's going to be okay. All right, I'm putting all these out. I want them to cool down before I add them to the egg mixture because I don't want them to try to cool that. So spread them out. You don't need to go so far as put them in the refrigerator. They don't have to get chilled. You just don't want them hot any longer. So that's the reason that they're there cooling down. We're going to use the same pan going into the oven. Now you could use, a lot of people would use for this, a seasoned cast iron skillet or a non-stick cast iron skillet. This is just a regular non-stick skillet, but it is safe for the oven at the temperature that we're going to use it now, so that you can use that as well. The thing that you need to be cautious about is with a cast iron skillet, you can really crank the heat up underneath it and it's not a problem to the pan. With most of the non-stick skillets, like the one I've got here, cranking the heat up really high can break down that non-stick coating on you. So read the directions that come with your skillet first of all, and put it up no more than like a medium high, which is what I was using. Okay, we have our 12 eggs here. I didn't use quite all the salt before, so I'm going to add the rest of the half a teaspoon of salt in here. I also have just a commercial can of cream corn. Now, if you've got your own cream corn that you prepared this summer and canned, use about 2 cups. And remember, that's providing some of the starch that we need. It's also providing part of the 2 cups or the vegetable ratio that we need. And I'm going to whisk those together a little bit. Whisking works fine until you get something like a shredded cheese, and then the whisk is not probably going to be your favorite tool. So I'm going to give it up at this point because I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of chopped green onion to this as well. You could use chives if you had those instead, and then I'm just going to stir those together. Then we're going to stir in 2 ounces of grated Parmesan, which is going to be around somewhere between a cup, half a cup, somewhere in that area. You can mark it the first time that you do it, and then you'll know exactly how much you need. But in general, the frittata is not something that you need to heavily worry about some of the ingredients and getting the ratio exactly right. Let me check the temperature on our mushrooms. Yeah, they've cooled down fine. Let's see, it doesn't take very long. We'll stir those in along with the jalapeno. And then we're just going to put them back in the pan that we were working with to begin with. You could do something very similar with leftover meats. If you have leftover ham, for instance, this would be a great way to use some leftover ham. And then it's going to go in our 350-degree oven for somewhere between 30 and 35 minutes. After this comes out of the oven, you want to make sure that it's set before you take it out. You can insert a knife into the center of it. If it comes out fairly clean, that's good, or you can just jiggle it. If it's fairly stable, that's good too. But let it set for about 5 minutes before you try and remove it from the pan. It makes 6 servings. You can either eat them all at one time with a group. You can put them in the refrigerator. So if you want to make it up and then serve it like you would a quiche, reheat it a little bit, or actually serve it at room temperature. I think you'll find it a great addition to your holiday season. It's corn frittata for Oklahoma Gardening. I'm Barbara Brown, and happy holidays.
Wow, what an incredible season it has been. We have seen so much this season, everything from what it takes to get a golf course ready for the NCAA championship tournament to watching wildflowers being produced on a commercial scale. We've also looked at plants here at the Botanic Gardens as well as to the far reaches of the panhandle of Oklahoma. We have really covered an array of horticulture subjects. If you missed any of these shows, remember that they're always available on our YouTube channel. While winter has arrived quickly, as I look back over this past season, I am already getting so excited to start planning next season. Also, as we get our Oklahoma gardening shed situated, it got us thinking about what your garden shed looks like. We want to know about what your tips and tricks are for organizing your garden supplies. And is it just a garden shed, or is it a chic garden shed? As we go into winter and you begin putting your garden tools away, take a look at your shed and consider sharing it with us. You never know when we might stop in for a visit. Also, this winter, we don't want to lose touch with you. And that's why we're bringing back our Winter Oklahoma Gardening podcast that air live on our Facebook channel. Mark your calendars for December 5th at 10 a.m. as we air our first podcast. These podcasts are aired live with state specialists, and that's an opportunity for you to comment or ask questions during these podcasts, and we love that engagement with you. So again, mark your calendars for December 5th. In the meantime, we hope you can curl up with your favorite plant catalog or magazine, because as always, spring will be here before you know it.
The holidays are a time for gratitude, and we would like to express our gratitude to everyone who makes Oklahoma gardening possible. Our administration and colleagues in the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service, the Department of Horticulture and Landscape Architecture, and Agricultural Communication Services. We would also like to thank our sponsors for all of their support and collaboration throughout the season. And special thanks go to the employees, student workers, and the incredible group of garden ambassadors at the Botanic Garden at OSU, who work behind the scenes to make our garden home a beautiful backdrop for our program. And finally, we are grateful for you, the viewers who join us each week for our gardening adventures. We wish you wellness and joy. Happy holidays. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. And we always have great information, answers to questions, photos, and gardening discussions on your favorite social media as well. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows, as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We wish to thank our generous underwriters, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society.